Welcome to the Personal Pension Radio podcast, where it's all about helping you complete your financial journey to retirement, discover time-tested strategies, and get unconventional insight into wealth building and retirement that actually work. Break away from the herd and go for the retirement you dream of. And now, here's your host, the income engineer.
All right, that's me. I'm the income engineer. Thank you for being here on Personal Pension Radio. Truly appreciate all the support. We are heading into Thanksgiving week. So this is actually being recorded the week just prior to the Thanksgiving holiday here in the U.S. So looking forward to that. Looking forward to hopefully, everybody getting into that spirit of being thankful for the things that they have. And I truly am. I'm thankful for the audience here at Personal Pension Radio. Now, broadcasting as always, now going forward as always, from the Personal Pension Radio studio workshop here in Southern California. If you have not already been to Personal Pension Radio, make your way over there. Check out the website, back episodes, transcripts, and notes. If you don't find what you're looking for there, please go to Personal Pension Radio and contact me, the income engineer, through the website at Personal Pension Radio. Just send me a message right there through the site and ask me for the information that you're looking for. No worries. I'm sure that it's probably just held up in the compliance review process. Had to do a little cough there off mic, so I remembered to press the button. Sorry about that little dead zone in the airwaves. For those of you who are new, somebody asked me recently, why I sounded different than most other financial advisors in the conversation that I was having with this person. And it's good for me to come back and remember to share with everyone my take on why the message that people hear from me is oftentimes very different than what they're used to. I was educated in the Wall Street financial advisory machine, is what I called it. The Wall Street and banking educational machine for young financial advisors is pretty standard, and it's basically the same kind of message that's been taught for many, many years. It's what was taught to me. And I was never taught to pay attention to what was behind the curtain. Now, what I mean by that is that the financial industry, as you would expect, it is a business, is going to do that which benefits the financial industry first. So it doesn't really make much sense for the financial industry to spend a lot of time teaching the salespeople, the advisory community that's out there representing the financial advisory machine. It doesn't really make sense to spend a lot of time teaching about maybe some of the things that the general public might not like, such as fees or, biases. Major biases that might be built into one industry versus the other, right? And as I've been doing this for so many years, I have paid attention to what is now, I call behind the curtain, right? So when I came up in the investment advisory education and the insurance world, when we talked about retirement planning, the answer to every question was invest more. Diversify, dollar cost average, invest. For me, that's the way I was taught. And most advisors today have been educated by that same machine that taught me the messaging that worked best for banks and Wall Street. And now I would say and suggest to you that CPAs and attorneys and bankers and insurance professionals, and the list goes on and on and on, they're taught ultimately by the same machine that taught me. And my opinion is that the education is incomplete. It is incomplete when it comes to retirement planning. There's very little discussion about what this show is all about, which is the income planning portion of the retirement plan. So what I've heard when I started was the answer to retirement was invest more money. The answer to college savings was invest more money. If you lose your dog, you should invest more money. If you get a flat tire, you should invest more money. If your mom or your daughter or your friend is sick, you should invest more money. You get my drift here? The whole thing was one-sided, was very lopsided. It was all about accumulation, accumulate. There was very little information about distribution, income. So now the question comes up after that, well, why isn't anybody talking about it? Why don't I hear things like sequence of returns risk? Why am I not hearing this information from other people, other financial advisors? My take on it is this. I ask the question, does Wall Street have any financial incentive to teach you how to take your money out of their system? Of course not, right? Of course not. There's no major financial incentive for Wall Street and the banks and the financial machine in general to spend a ton of money teaching us how to take money out of their system. It's not insidious. I mean, it's not a bad thing. I mean, it's just business. But if you know that, if you understand it and go into your financial life with this perspective, that most of your financial advisors, most of your financial companies that you're going to meet, they don't have a financial incentive to teach you how to take money out of their system. So you might expect that the information you're getting is either non-existent or incomplete when it comes to retirement income planning. And that is where I seek, as the income engineer, I seek to close that gap. My message is very different. My message says, for example, that no one financial product, whether it be a 401k, a stock, a bond, mutual fund, life insurance, real estate, annuities, none of them by themselves will maximize retirement income for you. It's really important that you hear that stocks or mutual funds or life insurance, oh gosh, we hear that all the time. I heard a podcast this weekend where it was all about life insurance was the answer to maximum income, tax-free income in retirement. Well, life insurance as an asset, absolutely, it can be designed to be a pretty phenomenal asset by itself. But it's not until you partner or balance life insurance with stocks and investments, 401ks, real estate, when you balance life insurance into a comprehensive income plan, then the results are so much better than the life insurance could ever be by itself. It's so much better than the investment account could ever be by itself. So that's what I mean when I say that the retirement advice that has been taught and continues to be taught to the financial advisory community and subsequently to the CPA community, the attorneys, the bankers, the insurance professionals, people like me when I was younger in the business, it's incomplete. They're just not spending enough time educating the financial advisors on how to build a proper retirement income plan. So that's my take on that. Quick disclosure as I launch in, as always, right into the getting all excited. I am not an attorney. Very important disclosure right there. I'm going to double take on that because I had a listener question about something related to things that attorneys do. So I am not an attorney. I am not a CPA, certified public accountant. I am a certified financial planner professional and a chartered financial consultant. All that is great, but please do not act on things that you hear on this show as if it is advice for you. And especially, please do not act on things that you hear from financial entertainers. Financial entertainers are people that are not licensed, they are not regulated, they give out advice under the guise of the First Amendment, freedom of speech, and anybody who wants to be a financial entertainer can be. Some financial entertainers have reached enormous levels of success, and they have huge audiences, and unfortunately, because they are not regulated, they say whatever the heck they want, and sometimes the things that they say are horrible, and especially horrible for people who don't understand the ramifications of the advice and the comments that are being given out by the financial entertainer. So please, please be cautious. Meet with a qualified financial advisor. And I would suggest if you have met with a qualified financial advisor, someone you think to be qualified, please do what a listener did recently. Met with another certified financial planner and got some advice and just wasn't sure if that advice just was right. So that person went to Personal Pension Radio, contacted me through the website, and asked me if I would review his information. And I said, of course, that's what I would do. Now, some of the information came back that I personally would not have recommended certain things. And on the other hand, there are certain aspects that I would say, amen, oh my gosh, that's fantastic. That's what I'm talking about. Meet with a qualified financial advisor. If you're not sure whether or not you have a qualified financial advisor, test them out. Get a second opinion. Come to me at Personal Pension Radio. Ask the income engineer to take a look. I'll give you my honest feedback. How's that? Now, let's jump in. Segment number 1, watch your step. Now, I want to do something different in this segment. I actually kind of get a little bit tired of the negative because there's just so much information out there. And I've mentioned this before. In the 24/7, 365-day news cycle, and there's thousands of different sources that constantly need information and articles to fill up their websites and their blogs. And unfortunately, sometimes they take crap, total crap. It's amazing what they put on these websites. It's just insane. So rather than go through yet another article or 2 or 3, because I could probably spend a month, 2 months at a time just going through the garbage articles that are out there on these various financial websites. I mean, and I really believe that there's just so much garbage. Now, there's some great articles that I can find now and then, but most of the time they're just filler garbage that it just frustrates me. So I want to do something different today. I want to encourage you, especially at this time of Thanksgiving and Christmas coming up, don't step over the deals all around you. So that's my take on it. Watch your step. Watch your step so that you don't miss the deals that are all around you. So I talked about this, a few episodes back, that I am militant about looking for a deal. You know, if I want to buy something, and I'll be the first to tell you, so my wife doesn't have to tell you, I definitely do like to buy things. I will get into that selfish mode where I want something for me. However, I am always on the lookout. If I want something, I want to get a deal on it. I want to search for that item on sale. My wife and I, we joke, I say, I'm the woman in the relationship, that stereotype of the woman, you know, that always goes out looking for the deal. Well, that's me. I'm the one who's always looking for the deal. So a suggestion I want to make, especially as we come up into this holiday season and Christmas and everything, is embrace technology. So I asked somebody recently if they used eBay or Amazon or Craigslist or any shopping application on their phone, because they did have an iPhone. So these folks that I was talking to had an iPhone, and I said, oh, great. So do you use Amazon and eBay and that kind of stuff? No. You don't use Craigslist? No. Really? You don't use either one of those? No, I don't do that. I don't mess with that stuff. That amazed me, but did not surprise me. So I want to encourage you to embrace technology. If you are listening to this podcast on a smartphone, if you're listening to it on an Android phone, if you're listening to it on an iPhone, if you do not have eBay and Amazon and Craigslist and OfferUp, these are all for shopping sites, shopping applications. If you don't have those apps on your phone, I challenge you right now, go get them, okay? Because the Amazon app, for example, has, as the eBay does, a scanner feature. So you could actually be, as I have been, standing in a store, like a Walmart store, a Home Depot store, or something like that, and you might be ready to buy something that you absolutely need to have, want to have, whatever it is, you've decided you got to go get that item. Now, you can actually scan that item, a picture of the barcode, and you can look that up on Amazon to find out what Amazon is selling that item for, right? Oftentimes, you can find it for sometimes 10, 15, 20% less than you might find it in the local store. Now, depending on the store, you may also then be able to walk up to the register and ask them to match the price that you find on Amazon. There's some rules that every store might be a little different, but at least you can ask. If you could save 20%, most people wouldn't walk past $10 or $15 laying there on the ground. You would still want to pick that up. The same thing goes for eBay. eBay has an option that you can check the price on a simple item, and just before you go pay retail for it, before you jump out there and go buy that item, you might instead buy that thing on eBay. Why not? Some folks, it's not secure. People are going to steal my identity. I've got news for you. If people want to steal your identity, it's very simple to do. They don't need to go to eBay to do it. Okay? So you're missing out on sometimes lots and lots and lots of money because you just don't take a look at the options that are around you. Okay? Looking for that clearance deal, looking for that sale item is easier than it's ever been. Way easier than it's ever been. So let me give you an example. Okay, I'm going to give you a couple of examples because people will inevitably say, well, what do you mean by that? And how does that work? And I don't know about that. And then they just throw their hands up in the air and they just don't do it. So I'll give you a big example. This is a big one, and this is with Craigslist. Okay, so Craigslist is like the classified ads that a lot of us grew up with, the newspaper, and if you wanted to sell that toaster, that you wanted to get rid of that old toaster, you would go to the newspaper and you would place an ad in the classifieds. Well, Craigslist is an online classified ad that's all around the country and all around the world. I think they've got Craigslists, as far as demographics all over the world. But Craigslist is just a phenomenal place to find a deal and also sell something that you might want to sell. But in my case, here's the thing. I really, really wanted last year in 2015, when we moved into one of our rental homes, my wife and I, we had owned 3 rental properties, and I had a feeling that it was time to sell out of real estate and just get ready to just sell out and let's settle down into waiting for the next opportunity. So we sold out of real estate last year, and we moved into one of our rental properties that we had as a rental for several years. And in doing so, we picked up an old house that was a lot less expensive to live in, and it had a really big backyard. So myself being a woodworker and a hobbyist, I've always wanted a workshop. Now, I started researching building a workshop in the backyard. I started looking into it. And wow, to build a workshop in the backyard was expensive. It was anywhere from, we were seeing $30,000, $40,000, $50,000, and we weren't talking about a gigantic building. It was just the cost of materials, but permitting and all of this infrastructure and the government bureaucracies and all this stuff, $30,000, $40,000 plus $50,000. And wow, I don't want a workshop that much. So taking my own advice, I started looking at Craigslist. I started looking for maybe a large shed, or maybe somebody was selling a barn or something. Or then I started looking at modular storage units. I have seen things on the web of people reconditioning and renovating a storage unit, like those big metal cargo units. And I thought, oh, maybe I could do that. Well, in the process of looking for storage units, I ended up seeing a modular mobile office, like one of those things that you would put on a construction site so that you would have an office to work in while you were building, houses or a big hotel or something. Well, I didn't really like that idea either, but in the process of looking at those, I spotted one day a modular classroom. That's right, a modular classroom, one of those modular mobile type classrooms that they put on school grounds. When they run out of space in the primary building, they bring in modular classrooms. They don't have wheels. They just put them right on a foundation, put them right on the ground, and the kids go to school in the modular outdoor classroom, right? I'm sure a lot of you, I know I'd done a number of classes in those modular rooms. Well, I spot that on my Craigslist app. So I have an app that I had put a search in there to alert me if a certain thing came up, like a modular building. Well, that search triggered a result one day on a Thursday afternoon, and when I got done with one of my appointments, I looked at my phone, and there's the alert. And sure enough, they were selling classrooms from a school district near where I live. They're apparently selling the old classrooms in preparation for new ones. Well, guess what? I now have a school classroom in my backyard. It came in 2 pieces, and let me give you just a quick bit of information. That at Home Depot, because somebody obviously is going to ask me, how much did it cost? What kind of money did you have to spend on a classroom? And what do you mean by classroom? Well, here's what I got. I got a 24-foot wide by 40-foot long classroom, just under 1,000 square feet, full classroom lighting, double-walled, insulated, air-conditioned. Right? Got it? 24 by 40 foot. And just to help you just picture this, at Home Depot or Lowe's, you've probably been to one of those home improvement centers that has the sheds outside. They have those old, the new sheds. You can buy a shed. You can buy a shed in a box. And I looked at that, and, when I was considering what to do, and I was amazed at how expensive a shed is. A 10 by 10 shed at Home Depot was $4,300. $4,300 for a 10 by 10 shed. So you ask, how much did it cost you for this 24-foot by 40-foot classroom, Kraig? How much did it cost? It must have been so expensive. It cost $2,000. That's right. It costs less than half of a 10 by 10 shed at Home Depot. Now, full disclosure, it cost me an extra $3,000 to have it delivered and to have it set up and plugged in and everything else. I did all kinds of the work myself because I love that kind of stuff. But $5,000 for this building, and it's $700 more than a 10 by 10 shed. And that deal came because I embraced technology and I took a look at my Craigslist app and I saw an alert because I had it set up. I used the technology that was available to me. And by the way, that Craigslist app cost $2. It was $2, probably the best $2 I've spent on my iPhone forever. And I end up getting the workshop of my dreams, really. The workshop of my dreams. I smile whenever I come in here. And the fact that I got it at a steal just makes me smile even more. So watch your step. Don't step over a deal. They're all around you. One final story to pay attention to things like this. Sad story when we heard that ITT Technical Institute, one of those online and in-person schools for technical training and education, big company ITT Tech, they went bankrupt earlier this year, 2016. They filed bankruptcy. In the building that I have an office in, ITT Tech occupied a large amount of the downstairs. Well, on my way into the building last week, I noticed that the building manager had finally had enough waiting for ITT. They put a sign up that they were going to liquidate all of the furniture and equipment that was left in the ITT space. So I took advantage of the opportunity. It was the end of my day. I had some time. I ended up getting just some tremendous deals on more stuff for my shop. I got about $2,000. You heard it right. $2,000 worth of cabinets and desks and workbenches. I got all of that for $275. Well over $2,000 retail that honestly I would have never paid for if I had to pay retail. I would have figured something else out because I would never pay for the desk that I'm sitting at. The desk that I'm recording this podcast at in my workshop, I would never pay retail for this desk. I paid $40 for it. $40. This thing would be $600 minimum. And I got it for $40 because the building manager wanted to get that stuff out of there so she can get a new tenant in there paying the bills. So don't walk past the deal. And finally, when you talk about saving money on something, it's not enough personally to just save the money. You have to avoid lifestyle inflation. Lifestyle inflation is a fancy way of saying, or a simple way of saying, that we have a tendency as human beings that when we find money or make more money, our lifestyle tends to increase to match the income. Our lifestyle is inflated up. Instead, pay close attention to this if you can. Really fight for this. It's tough. Trust me. I know it is tough because when you find $600 in your budget because you found a deal, you were able to cut a cost, you were able to reduce your cell phone bill or get rid of a car payment or get rid of the jet skis that you've been paying for or that boat you've been paying for. When you finally save that money and you don't have to spend it anymore, don't just spend it on something else. Save it. When you find $300 in your budget, automatically get that $300 into your savings, into your investments, into your 401k. Just pretend like it's still going out. If you pay off your car, you save $400 a month. Make sure that as soon as you pay off your car, you automatically start putting that $400 a month towards your investments, your savings accounts. Just pretend like it's still going out. Just put it somewhere else. Avoid lifestyle inflation. Okay? Avoid lifestyle inflation. And now we're going to wrap up with a great question that came in from a listener. And the question is pretty straightforward, but I'll give you the details that we got here. I'm wondering, this person says, I'm wondering if I should get a living trust. Now, remember earlier I told you I am not an attorney, but I am going to give you some good general information on a living trust. But let me finish the question. I'm wondering if I should get a living trust. I met with an attorney, and she quoted $2,500 for an estate plan. He goes on to say that, they go on to say that I'm married with 2 children, and we own our home and a rental property out of state. Okay? So the question is, should they get a living trust? Now, remember again, I'm not an attorney, so this is just good general information as it relates to trusts and so forth. First of all, we got to make sure to get some definitions out of the way. What is the difference between a will and a trust? A trust and a will, okay? So first, a will. A will is a written list of instructions for the probate court. The probate court is where a deceased person's assets are divvied up to either family or other people. So, for example, if you die and all you have is a will, and you own a home and you own some checking accounts and bank accounts and such, your assets go through the court system in the county where you lived, where you died, and they look at the will, and the will says, I want all my stuff to go to my nephew, Justin. Well, great. That's what the will said. It's a written list of instructions. The probate court then stamps the approval and charges a fee for processing that probate, and then the assets can move on to Justin. Okay? So a will is a written list of instructions for the probate court to deal with the assets of a deceased person. Now, a trust, a living trust, or in the full term, a revocable living trust, is more of a legal entity that owns stuff, that owns things. And remember, a probate asset is the asset of a deceased person. So if a living trust does not die, and if a living trust owns your assets, and it did not die, there are no assets of a deceased person, therefore no probate. That's how it works. That a trust is really, in its simplest form, an entity that owns stuff. They do not die, therefore no assets of a deceased person, no probate. Okay, now, when should you consider having a will? Just that simple instructions for a probate court. Well, the answer there is when you start acquiring assets like cars or investment accounts or real estate, valuables like jewelries, watches, things like that. If you have kids, you definitely want to have a will. If you're really young and you don't really have a lot of personal property to speak of, there's not much need for a will. There's other documents that you want to have that I'll talk about when I wrap up this segment. But a will is really when you start acquiring assets, especially when you have kids, because a will can spell out your guardianship choice, right? I ask people all the time, if you do not have a will or a living trust and you have kids, listen carefully. This is for those of you in the audience listening right now. If you have children and you do not have a will or a trust, who would you want to be the guardians of your children? If you died, who would be the guardian of your children? Now, most people are thinking, oh, my sister Francine or my brother or my mom and dad or whatever. The answer is no. Most of the time, if you die with young children, if you have young children and you die and you have no will and no trust, the county in which you live basically becomes the guardians of your children. They become the guardian of the children, and then they decide who the kids get to go to. So if you have kids, for crying out loud, make sure you at least have a will. God night. I meet people that don't even have a will, and they've got 3 kids. Get that done. It's not hard to do. It's not terribly expensive. Now, when should you consider a trust? When you have kids and you like them and you love them, definitely start thinking about getting a trust if you have more than $100,000 in assets. It's a very general number. When you accumulate more than $100,000 in assets, not including your 401k or your IRA, that is very, very important. 401ks and IRAs pass through beneficiary designations, so they do not go through probate. 401ks and IRAs bypass probate because they basically pass by contract, by named beneficiary, okay? But if you have non-IRA and non-401k assets, if you have business assets that have a value more than $100,000 combined, so if you own a $300,000 house, whammo, you might want to have a trust. If you own a business worth $500,000, whammo, you might want to have a living trust. If you own 5-6 different things that add up to assets worth over $100,000, you probably want to consider having a trust. Okay, so the trust can own all of those assets, and then there are no assets of a deceased person if you were to die. Okay, so it's important. If you have kids, though, that's where it really gets important to have a trust, because the trust bypasses the probate system, which can take a long time depending on what state you live in, right? Now, if you have a child, for example, with special needs, a disability, maybe receiving state welfare benefits of some kind, any kind of state assistance, you may want to have a specifically crafted trust. Okay, so this person, I don't know whether or not they had that kind of a situation, because if you remember, they had met with an attorney and she quoted $2,500 for an estate plan. Now, my opinion, that's relatively high as far as a cost for a very simple estate plan. A really simple estate plan, I don't know that $2,500 sounds right. Everybody charges whatever they want to charge as attorneys. That just sounds high. On the other hand, maybe they have a special needs situation where one of their children has a particular special needs situation where it required some additional drafting and additional language in the trust. That could absolutely bring the cost of a trust up to $2,500 and sometimes more. So if you own assets of any significant value, definitely think about getting a trust. If you have kids and family and you have any desire to leave a legacy, leave it through a living trust. It's private, for one thing, and it bypasses the probate system, which has a whole nother separate tax, a probate fee, aka tax, that you can avoid if you have a trust. Okay? Now, other documents that you should consider having, and I'm going to make a big, bold statement here. Thanksgiving is right now coming around the corner this next week, and Christmas. This is the time to ask family members, hey, do you have a will? Do you have a power of attorney? Do you have a trust? Do you have these things? Because if they don't, it's your opportunity to do something good for them, encourage them to get it done. Because I'm telling you, I have seen it the other way around where it's not been done right. Oh, it's horrible. It is just terrible to see what happens when people leave behind that legacy of not having their estate plan done right. But now, let me finish up with other documents that I think you really want to have. These are the ones that you should have really regardless of how old you are. You need to have these. Number one, a power of attorney. A power of attorney is a legal document that will give your representative the ability to act on your behalf financially if you were disabled or unable to make your own decisions. Power of attorney for financial matters is really important. If you have a retirement account and you're in a situation where you have a stroke and you can't take care of business anymore, well, nobody can help you with your retirement account unless they have a power of attorney that gives them your permission to act on your situation. So power of attorney is a big one. Healthcare directive. A healthcare directive is another power of attorney, but this time specifically for healthcare matters. That if you are sick, unconscious, unable to make your own decisions, then you have a representative that can make your medical decisions based on your specific wishes, and that takes care of some terrible situations where if you don't want to be plugged in, if you don't want to be plugged in like a vegetable for decades to come, if there's something bad happens, well, you better have a healthcare directive, a healthcare power of attorney to give someone the ability to do what you ultimately want to have done. So these kind of discussions are so important as a family. If your cousins and your uncles and your mom and dad, if they don't have these documents, please, please, please encourage them to do so. Encourage them to get that done. They're not hard to do. It's actually really simple. Those are not terribly expensive to get done. If you go to an attorney, there are other ways to do it online. But please, you owe it to yourself and your family. Get that protection in place. It's so, so important. Now, that is going to wrap it up for this episode. So, so appreciate you being here, sharing this with friends, with family, with coworkers. I appreciate all the great feedback. Happy Thanksgiving, and please remember the season. Be thankful, be helpful, take action today. Don't skip this today. Go and do something good for someone around you, and I'll talk to you again real soon. Take care. Thanks for listening.
Thank you for listening to the Personal Pension Radio podcast. If you missed anything during the show, that's okay. We took the notes for you. Check the show notes for links, offers, and a full transcript. And don't forget to head over to personalpensionradio.com and download your free retirement income report. While you're there, we would appreciate some iTunes love. Please leave us a fantastic rating on iTunes by going to personalpensionradio.com/iTunes. Thanks again for listening. Now for the disclosure. Information presented is for educational purposes only and is not intended for solicitation, sale or purchase of any security or financial product. Be sure to first consult with a qualified financial advisor and your tax professional before implementing any strategy discussed here. The term personal pension refers to a marketing name designed to educate future retirees and retirees about the economic principles behind creating their own pension-like income. The term personal pension is not intended to be confused with a defined benefit pension plan offered by an employer or by a government entity.